I want in-laws to chill out, right? Globally. Just go chill out, get your own lives and have your own marriages and work on your own things. And so I can speak from a pretty high privilege when it comes to this because my mom and dad have just stayed out of stuff. My in-laws are awesome. It's just awesome. They just love us and they don't fight and wrestle. Yeah. 20 years later, Melanie, how's it for you?
It's great.
I mean, bros now.
Yeah, yeah, and it
That's
took.
awesome.
I mean, there was a few years where it was a little bit weird, like uncomfortable. There was never fighting, but I could never imagine how close we are now back then, especially with that first attempt of like, oh. But yeah, I love it. I love what y'all are saying.
Okay. All right, you ready for the last question? And
this is your favorite question.
Yeah, this is your favorite question. So okay,
what is it?
Right, we only have sex once a month, and
hey, Mom, you're probably going to log off now.
I know. That's one of the funniest parts of like having a show and stuff is like your parents and stuff watch. You're like,
aunties and uncles.
No, man. That ship sailed for my family a long time ago.
Right. So we only have sex once a month. We have a serious intimacy issue when it comes to sex. My husband suffers from severe ED due to a medical condition because he has lost interest in having spontaneous sex. He says he's willing to please me, but I've gotten to the point that I don't feel like starting anything. He uses meds, but since we have a communication problem, sometimes I go to bed and it turns into a waste of a pill. This is really taking a toll on me. It makes me feel insecure, like I'm not good enough. On top of that, I've gained 20 pounds, not sure what to do. I've just gotten used to being intimate once or twice a month. So this, in this question, first, I want to thank the person, whoever wrote it.
Yeah, that's a brave question.
It's really hard to put yourself out there like that. And I want to be sympathetic too, because we all have these biological, spiritual, emotional urges. And of course, sex is one of those, right? So I want to honor like how they're kind of like frustrated in that, because that really sucks to be in that spot, right? So what do you got, John? Throw you a curve right there.
Him up. Here we go. Man, that's a good one. So a couple things. One is medical issues are medical issues, and they are what they are. My limited inquiry into ED stuff, erectile dysfunction stuff, is it often is somatic in nature. It often starts in your head. There are some actual medical conditions, and so I think working with your doctor is always important on that. I was really touched maybe a year ago when I heard Esther Perel go on quite the rant about never calling somebody impotent, because that ends up taking an identity that is way out of the bedroom and just turns somebody into a milquetoast thing, and you will wear that with you. And so that's just an aside. I think that this person who wrote this question is touching on a nerve, which is intimacy is derived from connection, and that connection starts way before the bedroom, way after the bedroom, before and above. And so this idea of that person is in that question, they're not talking, they're not communicating. Anytime somebody says the words "I'm willing to," I go, you know what I mean? That's just a like I'll paint the house, and I'll also get you off once a week if that's what you think you need, right? I don't like engaging intimacy or sex in that way at all. And so this is a conversation that seems to maybe have a medical origin, but it's way deeper than that. And I think this couple definitely needs to go sit down with a professional and to begin with the intention of reconnecting start to finish, because this is a way outside of the bedroom situation that she wants to make about a quantified sex issue, and it's just not that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. One of our friends, Dr. Corey Allen, talks about how we do sex in the bedroom is also how we do life. And it's kind of like that saying, how we do anything is how we do everything kind of thing. So if we're not communicating outside of the bedroom, and the person says right here that we have communication issues, right? So I bet if you work on the self-esteem issues, if you work on some of the biological issues, and you also work really deep dive on the communication issues, that other stuff is going to, well, you're going to see all the boats rise as the tide rises.
Right.
So yeah, I would definitely say it's a great question. This is going to take a deeper dive into some real counseling, and if he does feel impotent, like the conversation that Esther Perel had, then, like impotence, you feel useless. You're worth you can't do anything, you know,
Right.
and that and especially for a man, as we are like, you know, kind of our role, I believe our role is to provide and produce and do stuff, you know, and if you're not feeling like you're doing that, then it's almost like whatever, you know. So there's probably some depression issues that this guy might have too that I'd want to see addressed as a counselor, and also take a good look at the biological and physical piece too.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me is Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers, who is an amazing sex therapist out here in Seattle. We had her on our show last week. She talks about this idea when she is counseling couples of what type of sex aren't you having? And I know that's a really strange question, but people often only associate sex, in air quotes, as being intercourse. And we have one word for all of physical intimacy and connection. But physical intimacy and connection can look like a million things. It can look like holding hands, laying together. I mean, it does not have to be just intercourse. And when we whittle it down to one meaning, one definition, one experience, we eliminate literally hundreds of experiences that we can have. And
Right.
so I just kind of throw out that idea that sex is not one thing. It can be many, 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 many things. And the other thing too that really stands out to me is this idea, there's so much focus on we don't. It's not, it's this. I'm sad, but I guess whatever. How about this? How about we start a new narrative, write a new story for ourselves? We are going to connect in a new way because we want to connect more, as opposed to we don't connect. It sucks. It's bad. It's lame. Right? The story we're telling ourselves, the sort of bubble we have contained our emotional and sexual and relational experience in is stopping us from growing and changing and transforming. And so I want to encourage the person who wrote this question and anyone who's watching who struggles with the same thing, create a new experience, a new option, a new idea, a new envisioned whatever for your sex and intimacy. Don't whittle it down to one thing. Don't limit it. Say, I'm going to connect because I want to. I love you. I want to be here. As opposed to, we have communication problems, wasted a pill. Right? But that's not going to help. I don't know.
So, two important things, and I'm going to forget the second one. So remember touch therapy. Okay. So, I do love this question because I think it's a great example of how the funnel of suck works. I just made that up just now, so that may not be a thing. But if one day she says, hey, let's have sex tonight, and he's like, cool. And then he recognizes in the shower, and he's getting ready, he's taking a shower. Oh, dude, it's not like working tonight. And he has a moment right then that he can come out and be vulnerable and say, I don't know what's up. This is like the third or fourth time. I'm going to go see somebody about this. I'm sorry. He can be vulnerable right then. 99.9% of the time, that's a stat I just made up, he is going to take a 45-minute shower instead of a 3-minute shower. And then she's going to be really tired, and he's going to come out and say, hey, let's just do it tomorrow. I'm exhausted. You're tired. And let's just watch an Office episode. And that will continue. And suddenly what was an opportunity for vulnerability and connection that would have been this far apart comes this, and then comes this, and it becomes, he starts avoiding it. He's not going to go to the doctor and tell a doctor that he can't get it up. And then she's going to start thinking, and feel disconnected, which she's going to solve with food or with other medication. And suddenly you end up so far apart, and one moment of vulnerability would have shifted the whole relationship another direction. And we ended up with this tiny little splinter that, man, we ended up way far apart. And so the reminder for me is when I feel that tinge to withdraw is, man, I got to lead into that and just do the hard right thing, which is to be honest and be vulnerable in that little moment. The second thing is Dr. Beth Robinson, who is one of my old mentors and professors. She was telling me about a novel new therapy a few years ago that they were doing with sexually abused kids and infants, really young children. And she was talking about they had to reintroduce good touch. And all it was talking to infants who in many cases can't talk yet. And they had little bits of lotion and they were just gently rubbing their feet. And it was to reintroduce good non-sexual touch to the kid. And I thought, that's genius. Well, then fast forward 5 years later or 10 years later, this past week, my family was out of town for a few weeks. My wife took the kids to Texas, and I had completely spun out. I haven't been alone for 2 weeks by myself in my own house. I can't remember the last time I've been away from anybody this long. And so I remembered this. And so my reintroduction is every night before bed, I'm taking 30 seconds, a minute, and I've got a lotion and I'm just rubbing my kids' feet. And I have a 10-year-old son who's like 6 feet tall and is hairy and disgusting. And so this is like wiping. It's so gross, but it's just a connection thing. And it's the craziest thing. I'm going to bed calmer. My kids are going to bed calmer. And it's just so fast. But it's just this thing of, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to do something that's, I think the human feet, the foot is the most disgusting part on the human body. Period. It's so gross. I'm going to lean into the grossest thing I know how on the earth, which is to touch children's feet. And now I think I'm going to start doing that with my wife too, right? And so all I have to say is back to the author of this, that moment that a guy gets the courage to say, hey, this isn't working. Like, I can't get it up. That is a moment that you can lean back in and say, cool, let me rub your feet, right? Or let's do back rubs. And you can change the entire trajectory of your relationship beyond what you said, Melanie, which is, but I just want to get off once a month. Man, you can change the whole thing. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my rant for the day.
I love what you said. Oh, no, that's awesome. I love that you said that you've gotten to a point where you can identify that maybe either uncomfortableness or that vulnerability, because I strongly believe that if we can really see that coming and we start strengthening those muscles that lean towards it, that walk towards the gunfire or whatever, like a Marine, and say, hey, I'm going to do something about this, right? And it's like doing that 8th rep or 10th rep, you're like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to do it. But that is absolutely the one that counts. It's absolutely the one that makes you stronger. And I used to do this thing called the relaxer with the kids, and I just made it up, right? So the kids would get in bed, I'd have them lay on their stomachs, and I would just like kind of knead them like a cat does, like little cat paws, but just like kind of massage them all over, and then massage their little heads and stuff, and absolutely, it calmed me down, and it just did something magical for the kids, because they were just like, and like they sleep better, we sleep better. It's the power of touch. Dr. John Gottman talks about the it's the easiest intervention in the world. So if you're arguing with your spouse, talking about some conflictual thing, if you just take their hand like that, and only you're just taking their hand, it calms them. For men, we get flooded. It calms your blood pressure down, calms your heart rate down, and it helps you get centered. And I'm thinking from the male to female perspective, what is she going to think? Okay, I can approach this man. He's not dangerous. I can be vulnerable with him, and then let's talk about it. So it just takes this whole tornado of craziness, which we all have been there with our partners before, and goes, ooh, okay, we're going out. And just the simple act of touching your partner's hand like that.
Yeah, and one last thing that comes to my mind as we talk about this too is this idea of making progress in the direction that you want for your marriage. And same thing with life. Like every single day, make one little ounce of progress towards the direction of the thing you're trying to achieve. So that might be, I want to have sex more than once a month. What can you do today? One little step. That might be holding hands. That's it. Make it that simple for yourself. Break it down into one thing you can do every single day towards the direction. And I think it's going to go a long way, obviously, 20 years out.
Yes. And to answer her final question of that email, no, don't settle for just doing it once a month if you want a different life than that, right? But complaining and whining has never solved any problem on planet Earth ever, right? So go about solving it in a productive, awesome way with the genius stuff that Melanie and Seth just dropped on you. That's awesome. All right, so I think, is that
well, I think we all dropped. Yeah.
I think we're good.
Is that, we good?
I think we're
awesome.
Good.
Hey, thanks to everybody. And I realized I've been doing these Instagram lives now for a few months, and I now realize that this hand